Good evening again, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of this guest speaker series titled This is What an Engineer Looks Like, where tonight we will be having a discussion with Dr. Richelle Prickett about her career path and what made her choose this unique engineering career. And before I begin, I just wanted to take a moment for everyone tuning in from Edmonton to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 6 of the Métis Nation of Alberta Zone 4, home to a diverse population of Indigenous peoples who have acted as stewards of this land for many generations. I would encourage you to learn about the history and culture of the land and the Indigenous peoples of where you are tuning into tonight. So welcome, Dr. Richelle. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. We're very grateful to having you.
I am very much looking forward to it. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's taking some time out of their schedules. I know that things are busy to have this conversation tonight.
Thank you. So let's just get into the questions. And the first question we have here is, how did you get to where you are today in terms of your career?
Oh, goodness. Through a very twisty, not at all linear path. So I have a chemical engineering co-op degree from the U of A, and I have an interdisciplinary PhD also from the U of A in medical sciences and chemical engineering. And the work I do now has nothing to do with my PhD. So after I finished my PhD, I knew that I didn't want to stay in academia, but I didn't have a really clear idea of exactly what it was that I wanted to do. I really liked the interdisciplinary aspect, so combining medical and engineering together. And I then got the opportunity, my first job was working at a small biotech company, natural products company, but using my scientific sort of background and engineering background, but for business applications. So I was working in technology commercialization, so helping, they were a science-based company looking to commercialize products. So the company was Effexa Life Sciences, and they were the makers of Cold FX, which is probably what they're most well known for. Yeah, and so that was sort of my first foray into transitioning from more science and engineering into business applications with that type of background. And I learned a lot while I was there, a lot about project management, a lot about intellectual property, and a lot about knowledge translation. So how do you take basic research and either turn it into information that people will use or products that people will use? And from there, I worked for a little bit longer in technology commercialization. That company got bought out, so I ended up working for a different Crown Corporation, Alberta Innovates, in technology commercialization for a while. And then I made sort of a weird sideways leap, and I came over to the government of Alberta, and I worked in occupational health and safety, doing public education and awareness. And again, that linked back to sort of that knowledge translation piece. So how do you take now not so much scientific information, but how do you take sort of legal legislation, rules, and communicate it to an audience in a way that they want to change their behaviors. So that idea of how do you use information to change behavior was the piece that really interested me. And that's how I came over to OHS. And then since then I have made another small change. I'm still within that same area of government, but I manage a team that does training for occupational health and safety and employment standards staff. And I really like that. Again, it's like the learning science. It's like, how do we best teach people? And that actually links way back to grad school, where I really did enjoy teaching. And how do people effectively learn, and why do you remember some things so well and not other things? And so tying all of that together, that sort of idea of there's a lot of science behind why people remember things and how people learn and stuff like that. So that's sort of the twisty path to where I am now, with always sort of, I guess, that underlying interest in knowledge translation and behavior science and things like that.
Yes, that is really interesting. And as we all know, communication is key, right? You may be having all the technical skills, but being able to communicate it to our team members is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
So how do you define engineering? What does engineering
Oh my
represent
goodness, this
for
question
you?
kind of stumped me when I was looking to answer the question. And so I started thinking about it, and I really think it's using scientific principles to solve real world problems. And it used to be that that was very narrowly defined in terms of, using physics or chemistry really only. To solve problems. And I think that that has started to broaden out. Like we started seeing how biological and medical sciences and things like that were kind of the first, one of the first sort of intersections where it started becoming sort of outside of the typical realm of engineering, but still using those scientific concepts to solve problems. And I think that more and more we're seeing that engineers are really, really good at taking scientific principles from a wide range of disciplines and making them into something and using them to solve a real world problem. And those problems are becoming increasingly diverse. And engineers are becoming increasingly diverse in sort of their backgrounds in order to solve those problems.
Exactly. We as engineers will have to keep on acquiring new skills because the workplace is getting so diverse, and we're getting new challenges to deal with, as you mentioned, in the biomedical sector, in the biomedical field. And yes, I do agree that engineering is actually taking those technical skills and just translating them into something more yeah, just
Applicable, yeah.
applicable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mhm.
So how do you define success, Richelle?
So I think for me, success is really about finding a career that I think where the work I do matters. So I think that was one of the things, I think that's why I was always drawn to sort of more of that biomedical side of engineering, and why I really enjoy working for the public service, because the why, like why does my work matter, has always been very clear to me. And I think that what I'm doing matters and has an impact on people's lives. So I think that, yeah, finding something that you find interesting and engaging and that resonates with you personally, and that you can sort of feel good about the contributions that you're making. And I think also a big part of it is finding something that allows you to have some balance. So I have young kids who may bust in on me because I am at home. So that's just the warning. And I think even if you don't have kids, there's always you always have a personal life. And I think finding something where you can find some balance is a really important, to me, is a really important factor in success of finding something that allows you to have a well-rounded life that brings you a lot of joy.
Was it difficult for you to find this balance as a mother, as a new mother, or just returning back to the workplace after going through this period? Was it difficult to adapt again?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So I found, I have two kids, and I found that returning from both of those mat leaves was very, very challenging, just because I feel like you have so many competing priorities, and it can be hard. It can just be hard to figure out how to make all of the pieces fit again. So you go from, before my first kid, really it was just like whatever my career needed, I could kind of make the rest of my life work around that. And I still had lots of time to do other things. Then when you have your first kid, that first year is just all about like, what does, my child need? And you're very, very focused on that. And then when you come back to work, it's the first time where you really have to figure out, how do I make all of these pieces work together? But they do eventually. Eventually, they do, and you come to a new normal and a new equilibrium, and you figure it out. And I would say that that was something that I think when you are, when you're thinking about a company that you want to work for, an organization that you want to work for, thinking about some of those things, even if you're not in that stage right now where you're thinking, oh, I'm going to need to have some balance. I think finding an employer who will make space for that, because like I said, even if it's not family, you're going to have other personal life things that you want to be able to find balance for. So I think that that's an important thing to consider as much as you can. I know finding that first job can be a little bit hard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Definitely a factor to consider, that I think it's going to impact how you feel about your career and your job and your overall life if you work for an employer that will provide some space for balance.
So do you think the employers are doing enough? They're addressing this issue about women? Yeah. Are they giving in, or are they in just general? Or is there's still scope for improvement, right?
Yes, I would say it's getting better. And I would say that it's also one of the things that, strangely enough, I think COVID has kind of helped. So I think that employers are starting to realize that um, people can work from home and still be very productive. And I mean, there was sort of reasons why we had to work from home. But I think even given if it became a choice and, you know, it wasn't just a public health reason, employers, especially really, really large employers, are starting to realize like, hey, like my people can still be productive and we can still, you know, have an engaged workforce. I wouldn't want to work solely from home because I do think you lose some of that engagement when you're always, you know, working virtually. But I think that there's still more that can be done. And I think it's not just for women. I think that we need to make the space for and make it okay that if men want to take paternity leave, then you know, that it's okay. Because a lot of the conversations around balance are just about women. And I think it's because a lot gets put on women in terms of, you know, traditionally in terms of like trying to like do the family stuff and the work stuff. But really, if we want that to become equal, we need to make it okay for men to request the same sort of balance and not have it hinder their job prospects or their job progression as well. And honestly, if if we can get men to buy in, then it'll happen a lot faster. Because
yeah, we need the support of everybody. Yeah, we do need the support of everybody to make it, to ensure that this inclusion happens and that more and eventually this will bring more women into the workplace, right? More girls will join STEM. And like if we want to achieve the 30 by 30 goals, for instance, and I think we are in the positive, we are moving forward in the positive way here.
Yeah, but I think those things will help not even get women into STEM, but it's that like retaining them in STEM too, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like a lot of where we were doing better at getting women to come into the field. And it's like, well, now what do we need to do to keep them there? So
yeah, for sure. 100%. So what do you most enjoy about your work?
I enjoy that. So I guess there's a couple of things that I really enjoy. I enjoy that I'm still learning a lot. So I don't come from a sort of formal adult education background. I am learning lots from the people who are on my team and around me about instructional design and things like that. And, you know, and behavior science and learning science. And so I think that I really enjoy that aspect of, I feel like I still have a lot to learn and I find it really fascinating. So I spend a lot of my own time learning about it because I just find it really interesting. There's a lot of variety in what I do. So, you know, no day kind of looks the same as the last one. I really enjoy the team that I work with. They're really, really great professionals, and a lot of them come from that sort of OHS background, or they come from an adult education background. So that combination of different experiences and expertise on the team is really interesting. And I think that I also really enjoy that I can see a direct link from what I do to benefit to, you know, everyday Albertans. So occupational health and safety officers are out there making sure that people you know, come home healthy and safe at the end of the day. Employment standards officers are making sure that, you know, people are being paid appropriately and that they're not being taken advantage of by their employers. And so for me to be able to help them do their jobs, you know, more competently or consistently, I really like that. Like that's something that matters and that's important to me.
Yeah. So because you can actually see the impact that you're making in the general public and the community with the work that you're doing, right? And that is really, really satisfying for someone.
Yes. Yeah.
So why do you think diversity and inclusion in engineering is important to you? And what are things that we can do to ensure that we can address this issue in the future, to ensure that more people feel welcome, people of all different backgrounds and minorities feel welcome in this industry?
Yeah, that's a packed question. So I think it's important to me because well, I have a daughter and a son, and I want them to both feel like they have equal opportunity and no one's going to tell them what they can or cannot do because of their gender. And that will go both ways. I mean, I think that, we sometimes send little messages. We send messages to both little girls and little boys about what they can and cannot do based on their gender. I just want them to know that any opportunity is open for them. And I think that also sort of on a broader scale, it's also important that we have diverse representation in any industry, really, or any job, because that's where you're going to be able to not only, I mean, people talk about the diversity, like having diversity makes like the solutions that you come up with that much more diverse, but I think it's also even just identifying the actual problems. So it's really hard for a group of people who all have had a very similar lived experience to even identify all facets of the problem that you need to solve, let alone come up with, very diverse solutions. So I think it's on both ends. It's making sure that we have a good understanding of the problem, and then also that we can have some very diverse and robust solutions to those problems. And I think it's been something that on a personal level, when I came into engineering, up until that point, I hadn't really had anyone tell me that I couldn't do something because I was a girl. I grew up in sort of a small town. I was probably a little bit sheltered, even though it was very traditional. I was never, actually in engineering was the first time when I had like a prof or a TA tell me like, oh, you probably should, you're probably not going to be good at this because you're a girl. And it was kind of like then that I was like, no, that's not okay. Like,
yeah, that's when you begin to realize that these notions, they have to end, and you have to speak up and tell people that that's not okay.
Yeah, and to me, even, I mean, when I was in undergrad, that was a while ago, to me, that seems so outdated at that time. And so it's like, so for me, I'm like, we have to get past this. We have to and I think we're getting better at not having the like overt messages to people that they can't do certain things, but there's still a ton of subtle messages that we send kids about what they can and can't do based on their gender. And I routinely lose my mind in toy stores when things are labeled as girls' toys and boys' toys, because it drives me crazy. Because I'm like, why are we telling kids what they can and can't play with based on their gender? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the change begins at this young age. If you as parent can bring about this change in the kids, if we as a society can, just eliminate these traditional views about what a boy should play with, what a girl should play with. So that they know that the world is theirs. They can be whoever they want. They can go out there, work hard, achieve all their dreams, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of whatever community they belong with, irrespective of anything. And I think it will take a collective effort from each and every one of us. And the more we spread awareness, the more we ourselves become aware of these subtle, as you mentioned, these subtle mentions sometimes that we might not even notice, that goes unnoticed among group of stuff. Like the more we become aware of this and the more we address it, the better for everybody.
Yeah, because I just wonder, like, what pool of talent have we totally missed out on by steering, women into certain roles, but also men into certain roles. Like, there's tons of men that would have made great, nurses or like all of those sort of caregiver type roles, that they might have gotten steered out of that role because they were told like, oh no, that's not something that you should do. And I think the same is true for women in STEM fields and some other male dominated fields that we've probably lost out on a huge amount of talent just because of those very early on messages that we send.
Yeah. And
my kids are having a party right outside my door. I don't know if you can actually hear them. I apologize.
They're so cute. Yeah. Well, yes, let's move on to the next question, which involves any obstacles that you might have faced in your career or in your undergrad career, your graduate career, anything that.
Well, I mentioned the one, like I actually had, some profs and some TAs who kind of told me like, oh, you're probably not going to be good at this. Like you should probably just drop out now, or maybe you should go on vacation.
Was this in early on?
In my undergraduate. That's the one that kind of sticks out. I think that there probably has been other obstacles. even just like things like timing of going on maternity leave and things like that, right? Like sometimes you end up missing an opportunity because, you're going to be on leave in a couple months, or having to walk away from a really interesting project or something like that halfway through because of, when your maternity leave starts. That one, if you take the long view of it, you're always like, well, I'm coming back. There's going to be other projects. There's going to be other opportunities. But I think it does always sort of impact your career a bit when you take those pauses. Not saying that, I would still have had my children. I would still have done all those things. But I think it's something to sort of be, now that I employ people who are going on mat leave, I always try and be sort of thinking about that and not counting someone out just because, I know they might be going on mat leave, like at least letting them contribute while they're there up until the time that they're on leave. I think those are sort of like the big ones that kind of come to mind. I've been lucky that I've had, bosses and supervisors who've kind of gone to bat for me, like even when I've been on maternity leave, about, making me aware of, certain opportunities or, and things like that while I've been on maternity leave, so that when I come back, I could be considered for them and things like that. So, yeah, I think those are probably the big ones. I think more later.
How did you address this issue when your TAs or your teachers told you couldn't do something? I'm sure you must have been taken aback. Like, here you were in your undergrad, working hard at your courses, and someone comes and tells you that you do not belong here. That must have been a hard blow. And what advice would you give to other students who might be facing the same thing in their courses right now?
So I was very taken aback. Like, I was shocked. And so I don't think that I didn't ever, I think, address it directly with the person who said it. I think I was shocked and I kind of, took it. I probably was extremely upset for a while, but I think then perversely, it made me very, very determined to succeed. So it was I can't do this. Watch this. So not saying that, I excelled in all of my classes, but yeah, I think that it was it actually kind of motivated me to be no, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to, I may never be a great, computer programmer, but I'm going to pass this course just to prove you wrong.
Yeah, just stay focused, driven to your goals.
Yeah.
And
So I think it's finding that sort of that inner determination and that inner belief that no, I can do this. Not saying that I know lots of people who started engineering then decided it wasn't for them, and that's totally fine too. But I think it's if you think that this is what you want to do, it's not letting someone else convince you that you can't do it. And then, finding the help and the support that you need if you are struggling with something. So there's lots of different services on campus that can help you with the academic side of it. And I think the big thing I would say to people who are feeling, discouraged, or maybe someone has said something very discouraging to them, is to share it and to talk about it. Because I think one of the hardest things is feeling like I was the only person that prof or that TA had said that to, and I probably wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wasn't. And even some of the other struggles, through grad school and stuff like that, and feeling oh my goodness, I'm not smart enough. People are going to figure out that I shouldn't be here. I'm just that sort of feeling of being an imposter. People are going to find out that I'm not smart enough to be in grad school. I think that's a very common experience, but because people don't talk about it, you end up feeling very isolated. So I think with a lot of those is just find your support network, and talk about it, and know that you're not alone in those feelings.
Yeah, that's really true, because I bet all of us have these feelings from time to time when we feel we're not enough, we're not performing enough, and instead of just letting these thoughts affect us, talking about it, addressing it, and seeking support is the best way to move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing these personal stories.
No.
Okay, so the next question we have here is, how has your career changed over time?
Very drastically. So I kind of got halfway through my engineering degree and sort of reformulating my plan, going, I don't know if I would, because at that time, there was no either. Now I'm dating myself, but even when I was in undergraduate, there was no official biomedical option in engineering. And I was kind of looking at a lot of the traditional career paths that were available, or what I knew was available. thinking, I don't know that any of these really resonate with me. So then I started coming up, okay, I'm going to finish this engineering degree because it's going to be good training and it's a good degree and it'll give me something. But then my plan was always actually to go to business school and get an MBA. And then that kind of all went sideways when I did a co-op research project with a prof at the U of A and really fell in love with that interdisciplinary research aspect. And then she asked me to do grad school with her. And then, so that what I would say is like, that was the first divergence of like, this is where I thought I was going. And then things diverged. And then even through my grad school, I was very much like, what am I going to do with this graduate degree? I really love to teach, but I don't know if I want to do research. So I actually thought that I would become like go work at a teaching institution where I could just solely teach, because that was, I really liked that part, that education part. But those jobs are very few and far between. And I was pretty tied at that time to staying in Edmonton. So then I started looking more broadly, like what are the things that I really enjoy doing? And I really did enjoy that communication piece and the project management that I had done. And so I started looking for those types of jobs that would require, would still use my scientific engineering background, but in a different way. And so that's how I ended up sort of going to that natural health product company, because that's what they were looking for, someone who had a science engineering background, but was interested in sort of applying it in more business related ways. And they were willing to train. So that was a huge thing. They were willing to take people sort of right out of grad school and train them. And then it was like that company got bought out. So which kind of sucked because I really love that job. So then it was like kind of like, okay, so what's next? And then I would say the biggest one is, and it was just one of those sort of like, I think the term I heard was like sort of happenstance, right? Like someone I went to grad school with was working for the GOA in occupational health and safety. She sent me a job posting and I was like, what's this? I know nothing about occupational health and safety. Why the heck would I want this job, right? And she's like, no, it's really about like knowledge translation and how do you change people's behavior with information? I was like, oh, that is like so cool. And that's the part that I really like had loved about even like research commercialization and things like that. So that was the next sort of big shift, is like, okay, I'm going to leave private industry. I'm going to come to the public service and I'm going to work in occupational health and safety, which I had no background in. But yeah, it was really interesting. And I personally find the idea of, how do you use information to change behavior, and how do you, make sure that like now it's a little bit more applied, like how do you make sure that people are learning things and making training effective and things like that, combined with that, that feeling of what I'm doing matters. So occupational health and safety and employment standards, like there's like clear connection to like something that matters. So that's like, this was not where, like of all of the careers I thought of coming into undergrad, this was not the one that I thought I would be in. But looking back, I can see some of those common threads of things that I loved, even in undergrad and in grad school, like the idea of like knowledge translation and, communicating information and things like that. Have sort of linked all the way through, but it was not like this was not the path I planned.
It's crazy how things turn out sometimes, right? Yeah. I guess the advice here would be to always have an open mind, and you never know what new opportunities might just spring up and that you might actually like. You might learn new things and skills. That will give you a rewarding career.
Like I think it's, in some ways, I think I should have had a little bit more of a plan. But in some ways it left me very open to pursue opportunities that were kind of out of left field. And so I think if people can find that happy medium of like at least having a sort of like, this is generally, I'm going to do this, this is the next steps I'm going to take, or this is how I think, the next steps, but being open to other opportunities. Is probably sort of the happy medium from having because I know people who are like, okay, in
having a rigid plan,
exactly where I'm going to be. And then they're not even open to opportunities. So they're not even aware that they're passing on opportunities, or they might purposely pass on an opportunity and then that path doesn't pan out for them. And then where are you? Like you had this whole, sort of laser focus, and other things can happen to throw you off that path. So definitely being open to opportunity.
Because nowadays things are changing at lightning speed. There's so many new companies, startups springing up, and new industries, right?
Like no one would have predicted half the industries that we have today, like 10 years ago, right? Like, I mean, people always talk about like the big disruptors, but even some of the, the smaller innovations and things like that, no one would have, and who knows what's going to be coming next. So.
Exactly. So would you say, you thought you would be in your career right now?
No, because I didn't even think that this would be my career. So if you would have told me like coming into, so I think that's also the thing is like coming into, when I was about halfway through undergrad, I kind of had this crisis of like, oh my goodness, I don't think any career in engineering is going to really resonate with me because all I saw, and this is not a judgment on these industries, they were just things that I was not interested in, but all I saw was like, oil and gas or mostly oil and gas, let's be honest, for chemical engineers. Like that was the big thing right then. And then there was other sort of, related industries or things like that. But I was like, I just don't know that I can get passionate about that. And not saying that other people cannot or have not, but it was just for me, I was like, oh, I don't know. But that's where I would say, like, I didn't even know of the careers that were available or what was possible. And so I think spending some time to even like things like this where you talk to people who have taken an engineering degree and done something totally different with it, or even just LinkedIn is an amazing tool for things like that. And looking around broadly, what types of careers do engineers have? So what is possible? So no, this is not because I didn't even know this career existed. So but I think that like looking back at some of my sort of aspirations when I started out, I always knew that I'm very team oriented. So I think like I like the idea of like leading a team and being able to have a larger impact over just like this is my work and my impact. It's like now it's like this is my team's work and our impact and things like that. So I think in that sense, I kind of always knew that I wanted to lead a team and be part of a team and be able to sort of magnify the impact that I can have that way.
Yeah. So that collective, like, yeah, that mattered more to you and right?
Yeah.
So what would you do differently if you had to restart your career all over again?
I think I kind of touched on that. I think I would have a better idea of what careers were possible. I think I would have a little bit more of a actual plan versus like, oh, this seems interesting. This seems interesting. This seems interesting. Because I was very, I was lucky in that I had opportunities that have led to a very fulfilling career. But I think that if I was to start over, I would be a little bit more deliberate about planning some of the next steps or even thinking like, what should I be doing now if this is where I want to be, if this is where I think I might want to be, what should I be doing now to help prepare for that? Because sometimes I was very much like, I would come to like at the end of my PhD, it was like, oh my goodness, I don't really want to stay in academia. But I don't even know what else is out there and what should I have been doing to prepare myself for what was out there. So I kind of left that planning piece a little bit too late. So I think taking the time before you finish your whatever degree you're in to think, okay, what careers am I kind of interested in, or what think broadly, like not just one, but then what are some of the things that you can be doing to get yourself some skills and some experience that will set you apart for something that you're interested in. And it's thinking about the things that you really love to do, right? Like I knew even in undergrad, I really liked like the communication piece and things like that, which maybe made me a little bit different than other engineers. Like I actually liked like the English course that we had to take. And like, I don't know if they still make you do like the public speaking courses and things like that, but I enjoyed those courses. So thinking about those things, like what is it that you really enjoy? And is there, if it's not going to be a typical engineering career that really draws you in, but are there other ones that are, will use your engineering background and that problem solving ability and all the great skills that engineering has given you, combined with some other skills that you've developed to really help set you apart from other candidates?
Yeah, because it's all personal, and all of us have personal strengths and the weaknesses, and I think we have this wide variety of courses that we take here at the U of A, the English courses, the electives and stuff, where we are actually exposed to these different topics and then we were actually given the opportunity to know like this is what I want, this is more of where I can succeed, this is more of what I see myself doing in the next 5 years and stuff. Yeah. And I think, really analyzing this and becoming aware of this is really, it's crucial. Yeah. So what are any tips that you would give the students here for starting their engineering career?
So I think this is advice that I already shared with you about our mentoring session. But to take as much as you can, take advantage of the opportunities that you have while you're at the university. It's such an environment of like, there's learning and there's so many things that are made available to you. So there's events like this, but there's like so many other things that you can just, at no other time in your life are you going to just have this time set aside for like learning and seeing what's out there. And so I know that like it's busy and you have to like prioritize your coursework and your other activities. But as much as you can, like find some of those other things that, like get involved in a club or like attend different lectures on different things, and just really see what else is out there. And then develop those, not just the technical skills that you're going to get through your coursework, but if you have the opportunity to like sit on a conference organizing committee or be a part of a student club or things like that, you'll get some skills around like project management and things like that can help show that you have those skills when you go out into the workforce. But yeah, like there's things like there's just so many different, you see posters all over the, well, maybe not so much right now, but all over the university of like, different events and different learning opportunities. And, as much as you can without totally stressing yourself out, is just take advantage of those, because that will really be what opens your eyes to A, what you're passionate about, and B, what is out there after university. So what are even the potential career opportunities for you?
Yeah, because sometimes most of us, I think, are shy and we're still living in that comfort zone where we're just arriving at uni and we're still not comfortable with going out there and seeing all of what is going on. I think really breaking out of that shell and going out there and participating and seeing what is out there is crucial.
Yeah. I think I shared this with you before, but I don't like networking and I'm not great at it. I don't going into a big room of people I don't know and trying to talk to them. Like it freaks me out. And so I'd always make myself a goal of like, just talk to one person or just one question or something, right, that seemed manageable. And you'll start to find that like, and especially if it's something that you have a lot of personal interest in, like the questions kind of come naturally and like those connections start to happen, like where you'll just go up to a person here like, oh, wow, I thought your presentation or whatever was really interesting. And even if you just ask one question, it kind of helps make it seem less scary. So I would stop thinking about these events of like, oh, I have to go in and like, it's going to be a whole room of people I don't know. It's like, I'm just going to go find one person and talk to one person. And that seemed a little bit more manageable. So I think finding those ways that you can still network and meet people, but maybe make it a little bit less daunting for yourself.
Yeah, just taking it step by step and whatever is comfortable for you, but going out there and talking. Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. And I myself personally need it because I feel, yes, I'm not comfortable around crowds and everything. And I know probably a lot of students feel the same way. And I guess like attending these events in uni and taking chances here because we're not going to have these chances after. I think attending these mentorship programs and stuff is it is what we need because it's not just about the grades at the end of the day.
No, it's about so much more like grades. I mean, you want to obviously do well in your class. I'm not trying to tell you that like grades don't matter at all, but it's definitely you're all going to come out with the same degree. And so if you can say, this is what else I can offer, or this is what else I've learned, or these are the other skills I've developed, then that will help sort of set you apart and the connections that you've made, right? So.
Okay, so like with this pandemic still hanging around here and stuff, many of us are feeling a little bit less hopeful about our careers, I would say. So what would your advice be to those people, to those students who have just recently graduated this year or are about to graduate and are feeling a little bit less hopeful about the career, about starting the engineering career, because they probably had other plans and now that has been disrupted. So what advice would you give to those students?
I think it links back to like, I think that there's opportunity in any sort of crisis. So, COVID is a crisis and we're having an economic downturn, which is also a little bit of a crisis. But I think that we're going to see different things pop up because of it. And I think it's, maybe even thinking like, you've just been trained as an engineer to solve problems, is there a problem out there that you think you are uniquely able to solve? And then maybe someone else had the same idea. Is there a company out there that, might already be looking at this, and or maybe there's a new sort of industry emerging from some of these things. So I think it's like think broadly about the opportunities that are available, and it might not be your sort of traditional engineering career that you thought you were going to have in this one industry, but it's just look at what's sort of happening out there, and and is there something in that speaks to you, and you feel passionate about. And I would also say, I think it's also opening up the opportunity that I think a lot of people came to the U of A because it's a great engineering school, but also there's great industry here. But I think one of the things is that you no longer, even if you want to stay in Alberta, I think there's more opportunity to you could stay in Alberta and still work for a company that's somewhere else. So thinking more broadly about, I don't have to just look at because I said that was one of the things that kind of limited me when I first came out of grad schools. I was very tied to Edmonton. And at that time, where you lived is where you worked. I think that's starting to change, right? I think there's opportunity to to work for a company that is maybe somewhere else. And I just talked to someone who finished her PhD, and she's starting a postdoc for I can't remember what ministry it is. It's a federal government ministry. So in Ottawa, but she's staying in Edmonton for now. And, so it's I think there's some opportunities there to maybe look at more globally at what opportunities might be available.
Yeah, just not restricting ourselves to this province or this part of the world, and just looking out and looking for other opportunities all over the world. And
And I think there's so much technical knowledge and expertise in Alberta that I think it could be repurposed for different industries and things like that. And so I think it's maybe thinking about that, okay, so we have all of this very technical expertise that's all been, mostly directed towards the energy industry. It's but can we use that in a different way? Is there something else where, medical devices or things like that might be sort of the next big thing in Alberta, because we have such a wealth of knowledge and expertise here.
Yeah, I totally agree, because we have this wealth of knowledge, and we just have to find ways of implementing it for the greater good in the world. Especially the energy sector. Okay, I think we're at the end of our session here. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions and being here and taking time out of your crazy schedule. And thank you so much, Richelle. And I hope everyone has learned a lot. I have learned a lot, and thank you for sharing your personal stories. Thank you for everything. And
you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was very interesting, and the questions that you put together really made me sort of think, a lot about sort of, if I had to start over, what would I do differently, or what advice would I give? So it was very interesting, actually, thinking through some of those questions. So
the credit goes to the whole diversity and engineering team that put together these amazing questions. Our social media team, I would like to thank everybody for making this event a success. And yes, we'll be having other talks, and it'll be great if you can join us. And thank you so much. I hope everyone had a great time. I hope you had a great time, and thank you. Everybody have a great rest of your evening.
Is there some time for audience questions?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I think we have 10 minutes left for anyone to ask the questions.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you, Richelle, for sharing your story. I'm in my final year of chemical engineering and looking for jobs, and it's very oil and gas heavy, and I'd like to maybe branch into a different industry. Do you have any advice for branching into other industries? Specifically, a lot of the jobs more in kind of the biological sciences every job posting says you need minimum 5 to 10 years in doing biomedical science engineering work. So how would you recommend breaking into that industry?
So I think that apply anyhow. So that's always my advice, is apply anyhow. I know the job applications, like, they take a lot of work, because you should sort of be tailoring that cover letter at the very minimum to each job application. So it's a huge undertaking. But also think, like, often, like, that job posting is like the wish list of everything, you know, like if someone ticked every single box, right? But that very rarely happens, that someone's going to have everything on that list. And I think as much as possible, then you try and show how the experience that you do have would meet their need. So, you know, you're looking for, I'm going to make something up, but like, you know, you're looking for someone with project management expertise. Well, I, you know, I organized this conference, which allowed me to develop project management skills and things like that. So I think as much as possible, you have to take what you have done and show how it meets what they're asking for in the job ad. I think in terms of, you know, if they're looking for biomedical expertise, I guess in some ways it can be kind of hard if you're sort of in your last year, and I don't know if you have any you know, electives left that you can kind of play with, but I think getting some of that background. So I know that one of my technical electives, like, I took a biochemistry course, and now I'm totally blanking, but I use some of my electives to kind of explore that interest and show that I had some background in it. I think as much as possible, if you can make some connections with people in those industries, and I know that's easier said than done, but I think events like this, so you know, and other things, like I got the first job that I got at Effects Life Sciences, I went to an info session that they were putting on campus, and I just, you know, I went and asked, again, I was super nervous, but I asked, like, so I've talked to one person after, and I just asked a few questions, and then in my cover letter, I could say, like, you know, it was a pleasure meeting you at the info session. I have no idea if they remembered me or not, probably not, but they knew that I was at least showed the interest to be like, okay, I made the time and effort to come to that info session and talk to you. And I think sometimes things like that can make a difference, of just showing that you're interested and invested, and maybe they recognize your name on a piece of paper out of the stack of all of the other resumes that they've gotten. So yeah, network. LinkedIn can be a great thing, because you can see who knows who. So you might already have some connections with some people, you know, like maybe it's like a second connection, you know, but that person will connect you with someone that they know, and you can at least have a conversation and things like that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't think we have any other questions from the audience, but thank you, Richelle, for answering all of our questions tonight.
Oh, you're
And
welcome.
yeah, have a great rest of your evening, everybody. Thank you.
Yes. If anyone's driving anywhere, be safe. It's a little bit icy out there.
Yeah, yes.
Travels.
Be safe. Be safe, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.